Hello guys, Max here. So today I am doing a special video, um, reading one of my books that I have currently written called The Mystery of the Ghost Engine. Now, you're probably not gonna be quite familiar with it. It's a book that I wrote back in junior high at about, 15 or 16 is all I'm gonna say. I can't quite remember. But anyways, we're gonna read through this. Hope you guys enjoy. And this is the first book, and it will probably be a recurring series. I don't know. The Mystery of the Ghost Engine, Book 1. The Beginning. Chapter 1. The Beginning. My name is Jake. My friends and I, Max and Thomas, have had some weird adventures in our lives. And no, I don't mean like those kind of weird ones. I mean like the creepy kind of adventures. Anyways, let's just get to the story, and I'll tell you what I mean. It was a day like any other day, and I was hanging out on Call of Duty with my two best friends, Max and Thomas. Thomas was one of the smartest kids I knew, and Max was always cool to hang around. We all had something in common. We were all nerds. Jake, this is the third kill you have on me. This is stupid, Max said. It's called having skills, Max. It's not that hard to know, I laughed. Thomas sighed. Max, stop complaining. It's not like Jake is a professional at it. Exactly, Thomas, I agreed. I'm just good at it. Then my mom called me to come upstairs from the basement for dinner. I gotta go, guys. I'll see you tomorrow at school, I said. See you, Jake, Max said as his name disappeared from the party. Jake, come on, dinner's ready. Your father is here and he doesn't want to have to wait for you any longer, my mom called from the hallway. I pulled off my headphones and ran upstairs. After dinner was over, I went back to my room. I was about to lay down in my bed when I saw something out the window of my bedroom. It looked like a person standing outside, looking at the window. The figure was dark and was hard to make out, but I could see the face of a man about 60 or 70 years old. I slid open my window, but when I did, the figure was gone. All that was left was a hat lying on the driveway next to my mom's car. I felt a cold chill and quickly closed the window. That was weird, I said quietly to myself. I've had never I had never seen anything like this before, and it didn't seem normal to me. I wanted to call Max and Thomas so I could tell them, but it was too late and already past midnight when I saw it. And besides, I had school tomorrow, so I could tell them then. The next morning, I jumped out of my bed and ran downstairs. Good morning, Jake, my mom said. I made pancakes if you're hungry. If you want some. I'm not hungry this morning, I said, and quickly ran out the door to school. When I got there, I walked into the lunchroom. Max was at the table sitting next to Thomas. He was scarfing down a burrito he got from McDonald's that morning. Thomas was staring into his book like usual. He had been reading it for quite some time. I quietly sat down next to him. Morning, guys, I said. Max didn't say anything since he was too busy eating to notice me, but Max did at least. Morning, Jake, Thomas said. What's up with you this morning? I saw something out my window last night, I said. Thomas had a confused look on his face. Huh? I felt strange saying it, and uneasy telling Thomas. What do you mean you saw something last night? Thomas asked. Well, it wasn't what I thought it was, but it was really strange. But then the bell rang. The other students got up and left for class from the cafeteria. I'll see you after class, though, Thomas said. I left the cafeteria for my first class. At lunch, we met in the cafeteria. Max could tell that I had not shown up yet. Hey, Thomas, where's Jake yet? He's late again, Max asked. Thomas looked at him and shrugged his shoulders. Max was confused. Should we go find him? Max asked. At first, Thomas was going to say no, but he didn't want me to have been hurt or something or get lost somewhere. Fine, let's go find him, he said, and the two boys dashed out of the cafeteria and off the school campus to find me. After a while, they turned down a street that led down a dark dirt road. The sign next to it said one way only. The two looked down the dark road. Max had a creepy feeling about the dirt road. I don't like the look of this, Thomas, he said. Thomas looked down the road. Trees covered the road, keeping the light from coming in. The wind whistled through the trees, making an eerie sound. Max's hair stood up on his arms from the cold wind blowing through the air. They started to walk down the road. Then they froze and saw, like, then they froze in fear of what they saw in front of them. Chapter 2. Frozen Tracks. As they stood there, they saw a light coming towards them from the darkness. It got brighter and brighter, then it vanished. Right now, it got brighter and brighter, then it flashed a few times, and then vanished into the darkness in front of Max and Thomas. They stood there silently for a second, and then they looked at each other. They looked eye to eye to one another. "What was that, Thomas?" Max asked, shaken. Thomas didn't answer. He just stood there, with a very frightened look on his face. He had gone very pale, and the hairs on his arm stood up on him. I think we should leave." "He may have just been there the whole time," Max said. "Yeah, maybe he is," Thomas said. The boys began to make their way back to school, and the fog began to roll in. "That's weird. It said it was going to be a sunny day all day today," Max said. "Me too," Thomas replied, as he nodded his head. As they kept walking, they heard what sounded like a train in the distance. "Thomas, didn't you say there were no more railroads in service here anymore?" Max asked. Thomas looked confused. "Yeah? Well, why do you ask?" he said. But before Max could say anything, they heard it again. "I think we should head back now," Max said. "Yeah, I think that's a good idea," Thomas replied. "We might have just assumed he was late. He was still in class," Thomas said. Max nodded, and they made their way back to the campus, luckily managing to get me in his class after lunchtime. But Max and Thomas were still worried about what happened at the school. Worried about what happened. After school, the three boys made their way home. A silence. And since it was Friday, Max and Thomas were able to spend the night with me. But tonight was going to take them on a whole nother track. "So my mom bought pizza for us, if you guys are up for it," I said. "I'm always up for pizza," Max said with a big smile on his face. As the night continued, a storm began to roll in. My mom had left for the weekend after we had gotten pizza. We had just finished a round of color duty when the power went out. "Dang it," I said. The house was dark and quiet. We couldn't use anything. Then I remembered about the power generator in the basement. "I'm going to turn on the generator in the basement," I said. Max wanted to go with me. Thomas as well. So we made our way down to the basement door and slid it open. Cobwebs hung from the ceilings of the old basement. The furnace burned in the back of the large room. "Did you ever come down here?" Max asked me. "I didn't, but my dad used to," I said. "You had a dad, Jake?" Max questions. "Yeah," I replied, "but we don't talk about him anymore since he broke up with my mom," I said. "Why did that happen?" Thomas asked. "When my dad got a job in London as a train driver, he had to leave the U.S. My mom got upset because of it. She didn't want him to leave her. He said he would come visit us again, but it never did happen," I said. As I made my way to the big box behind the door, I turned on the light. The basement lit up. Thomas was looking around when the power came back on. He began to move some boxes, looking at stuff. Then he came across something strange. It was a wooden box. It was an old wooden box. It looked like it was made around the 1800s and was really dusty. "Max, Jake, come check this out," he said, dusting off the dirt from the box. Following Max to Thomas, we approached the wooden box. "What's that?" Max asked. I shrugged my shoulders. "Never seen that before here." Thomas tried opening the box. He opened the box to see a journal. On the cover it said, "Mr. J. Williams." "J. Williams?" Max asked. "Who on earth is that?" "I don't know. Never seen this before." "Never seen this box here before," I said. "Can we take it up now, since the power's back on?" Thomas asked. "I mean, I guess. There may be more in the sky," Max said. Thomas nodded his head. "Yeah," he said. So the three took the book back up to my room, and put the journal on the floor and opened it. Chapter 3. The Train Wreck. Flipping through the pages, in the old journal. I made my way to the back of the book. As I turned to the back, we found the map. We found the map at the back of the book. Small slot in the last page. I pulled it out and opened the map. My eyes widened. "It's a map of London," I gasped. It showed all the cities, including all the railway routes underneath London. "Whoa," Max said. I stared at the map for a moment or so, then looked at Max and Thomas. "This may be linked to something about this person," I said. As I set the map back on my bed, we studied the map for a minute or so, and then put it back in the journal. "I'll hold on to this book and the map, and I can see what I can find about him," I said, shoving the map in the slot, and then shoving the map in the slot. And then after a few days went by, Thomas and Max had left. Wait. I said shoving the map in the slot, and then Max and Thomas left. I hope I find something on this guy, some info on this Williams guy. I don't know if I will ever have any luck. Later that night, I laid on my bed, scrolling through Google, looking up the name, but I couldn't see anything that could help me, unless I stumbled upon a page that looked something on the info guy, William. I clicked on the link and pulled up William J. Johnson, a pilot of World War II, died at age 46. He was shot down in a plane that was transporting soldiers to the UK. It crashed over the Atlantic Ocean on September 5th, 1940. Wow, I thought to myself. I never thought about that. Kind of sad. I saved the link to my page so I could show Max and Thomas what I found. That night I woke up and looked at my clock. It was 2 a.m. I didn't know why. I just sat up right so suddenly. Looking out my window, I could see a figure. I knew exactly what it was. It was the man that I saw before, on the driveway. Now he was staring at me. Now he was staring up at my window, looking at me. My body froze in place as a stone or something. Then I felt my mind take over in a flash. I saw a man in my vision. He was saying something, but I could hardly hear him. I saw a massive derailed train off the tracks, and the engine was on fire, and all the cars were turned on its side. I looked around to see some sort of valley was surrounding me by corns and fields. Then my vision suddenly faded. I looked out my window, and the man was gone, and I could feel chills running down my spine at that second. I didn't like it. Chapter 4, Backlash. The next day, I sprung from my bed and into the carpet. I sprung from my bed and onto the carpet, slipping on my shoes. Opening up my door, I raced downstairs to the living room. I opened up my door and raced downstairs to my living room of the apartment. "Morning, Mom," I called as my feet slid down the floor into the kitchen. "Good morning, my little adventurer," I sighed. "Mom, I'm 19. I'm not a kid anymore. You know that I'm too old for that stuff." But since today was my birthday, I kind of was used to it. As I made my way to the bus stop, I could see Max and Thomas making their way as well. "Jake, happy birthday. I got some news," Max said, running up. "It's about the journal," he smiled. "Oh, that's good," I said, looking at the ground as I walked up to the curb at the bus stop. "What's up with you, Jake? Cat got your tongue?" Max asked, stepping up beside him. "Well, kinda," I said, staring at the ground as the bus pulled up. Are you open to talk?" Max said. "No, it's fine, Max," I said. Soon the bus pulled up to the school, and that's when I saw him. He was around the corner. His name was Justin. He was one of the meanest kids on campus I knew. His nickname, the nickname Rat Boy, he gave me because I had big teeth, and that made me feel even worse. Just hearing that name made me uneasy, keeping myself hidden as we walked off the bus. Just as I thought, just the thought of him seeing me with friends would make bad enough. Well, if it isn't Rat Boy, he said, I hope I can make you day today, Jake. As soon as I heard his voice, my stomach sank deep into my body. I knew that this day was going to be so bad. Just seeing him made me want to punch him. As I made my way to the cafeteria, I could see him standing in the cafeteria in the line with a few of his friends. I still had the feeling like he was just going to punch me. But as always, I kept my head down and looked at the floor, so hopefully I wouldn't draw his attention from where he was. Chapter 5. End of the line. As morning opened to the sky, I could hear rain pattering against my window. I got up from my bed and looked out. I sighed. Great, it's raining. I have to walk to school. I had no other choice but to go. Besides, my mom was probably at work, and by now I didn't have a ride, which means I didn't know what to do on that part. So I decided to just go for it. I grabbed an apple from the kitchen and took off out the front door into the rain. Running as fast as I could, I sprinted to the school. The sound of the first bell rang in the distance. I was so bound to being late, and it wasn't good. I rushed through the door and into the cafeteria. I could see the line and into the line of a breakfast. I could see Max and Thomas and a couple of people in front of me. I could see Thomas had his face in a book again. Like always, I snickered. When the lunch lady, Miss Torres, slowly pushed the book down from his face to get his attention. I snickered when the lunch lady, Miss Torres, slowly pushed the book down to get his attention, sitting down at the table while Max was busy shoving another burrito down his gullet. Hi, Jake, he said, with food and chunks of burrito still in his mouth. I shot a roll at Max with a smirk. Good morning to you too, Max, I said. I still couldn't understand why his mom let him eat that kind of food. At this point, he was going to be fat from being such a grubby eater. When I was done with my breakfast, I went into the lunchroom and sat down. When I was done getting my breakfast, I went into the lunchroom and sat down. I wasn't far from Max and Thomas. They were sitting at the table behind me. I didn't know why. I could hear them talking about something, but I couldn't make it out what they were saying. But I didn't worry about it. After I was done eating, I made my way to my class. Luckily, I was on time, so that was good. But my worries didn't stop me there. I had this feeling like I wasn't by myself. It felt like somebody was following me. It didn't feel right. My pace began to get faster, walking almost like speed walking. Then out of nowhere, I heard a scream from the hall going to the basement. And that's what got me going. I sprinted down the stairs, approaching my classroom, and I knew I was in a bad position because now I was late for my class. And that means principal's office was next. Chapter 6. Detention. Mr. Jake, you're late again, my teacher said. Algebra was one of my least favorite classes. It was one of my first classes anyways. My cheeks turned red in embarrassment, as I knew that was going to be good. I could hear kids snickering about me in the back as I sat down at my desk in the front row of the room. I wasn't very liked at that school, so it was unsuitable to explain. Explain why you're late, Jake, he asked. I'm sorry, I made the wrong turn here, Mr. Jefferson, I said, but I didn't get the words out quite right. Mr. Jake, this is the third time you've been late this week, and I'm not pleased. I think it's time you have some detention for being late for this time. I've had enough. You see, this is why I never was liked in that class, because my teacher hated me, and I still don't know why. The principal came into the... Wait, no. Wrong one. After I got home, after school, I made my way home. I got there, I could see my mom wasn't home yet. At least that was good. As I looked for my keys to the house, I suddenly felt cold and uneasy. My vision was very blurry and darkness flashed around me, making me feel dizzy, like I was about to fall over or something. I didn't like that feeling, but then it just appeared like it never happened. I was so confused, so I opened the door and went inside, trying to hide it when I went upstairs to set my stuff down on my bed. Sitting down, I opened up my laptop and stared at the same page I had pulled up from last week for about an hour or so. Then looked at my computer screen and looked out my window. The old rundown house that sat across the street from me. That house had always been the same old. That house had always had that same old Chevy pickup that never left the driveway. Some people say the man that lived there died, but I don't believe that because I did that's but I didn't believe that he did because I've seen him staring out his window at my house. I could see him looking at me from the house. My body ached and I felt strange. I didn't even I didn't even like to I didn't even like it. It was late enough for me, so I just decided to fall asleep and try in the morning. The sun snuck through the thick blinds of my window as the sky brightened for my waking eyes. Chapter 7. The Man Next Door. As I woke up, I sat in my bed and looked out the window. I didn't see him. It still considered I still considered myself, though. Lying down on my bed, I stared up at the ceiling, and I thought to myself, if something terrible might happen, maybe I was just overreacting. But though it took me over too fast, I shook my head and I got up from my bed, grabbed my backpack, and opened up the door to the hallway. My mind was still off on the thought of the weird vision I had yesterday when I got home. On my walk to school, I ran into Max and Thomas. Of course, Thomas was still stuck in a nose in a book that he'd been reading. I ran into Max and Thomas. Of course, Max was still stuck in his nose reading the same book from last week. Hey guys, I said as I walked up. Thomas looked up from his book. Jake, he said, looking behind him. Where did you come from? I smiled and looked at him. Are you okay, Jake? Max asked. My smile faded. No, not really. What happened? Thomas replied. The two looked at me, worried. Well, yesterday when I got home, I saw a vision of something. Of like a train crash, I stuttered. Max and Thomas looked at one another. A train crash? Max asked, with a confused look on his face. Yes, I said aloud. Sorry, apologizing that I didn't realize how early it was. Max and Thomas laughed, and at least that put a smile on my face. I guess it's hard to keep something in together. I laughed. Although I was still worried about the vision, it may mean something or about someone. Soon enough, we could see the school in the distance, and that was good. I was tempted to ask whether either of them knew about the guy that lived across the street from me. Thomas was the one that knew a lot about this place, since he lived here the longest, longer than me and Max. His parents grew up here, so it made sense. I wasn't hesitating anyways to ask him. It seemed a bit weird to ask him out at random. Chapter 8. The Last Stop. As the school bell rang, the students were dismissed from their classes, and I made my way to look for Max and Thomas, who had made themselves comfortable on the stairs. Seeing the scar worried me a lot. And it was not like what I've seen before. It was like the scar Harry Potter had, but on his hand. Maybe it was a birthmark you never knew about, Max asked. Or something like that, he added. it was something like it was something that probably had a meaning to it, but was it? Later that night, I was back on Call of Duty. The house was quiet. My mom had left for the evening, so I was alone. The story was still getting my attention. I was worried about it. What could I? What could it mean? As the as the day drifted on, my wrist began to hurt, swelling red on the outside. Hey, hey Max. Hey Max. Hi Thomas. I said as I walked up to them. Thomas smiled. Hi Jake. Thomas said with a smile. What's that on your hand? Max asked me. Huh? I lifted my hand to see a big scar across it. Whoa, that's new. How did that happen? It was going across my whole palm. It bled from it and then stopped. Later that night, I looked at my hand. I could see the scar was gone. Like it just disappeared. Lying back, I tried to close my eyes, but the pain just made my sleeping worse. My neck was hurting as well. As I continued for several days, until I couldn't take it much longer, and I didn't know what to do about it. But things went downhill from there because people started to see that the scar in my hand was coming back, and I knew that wasn't good. As the day went on, I grabbed my backpack and made my way home for the evening, and hopefully I wouldn't get a headache again. Looking behind me, Max and Thomas split off for the houses down the streets. I made my way home from a crazy week, hoping it wouldn't continue any further. To be continued. I hope you guys enjoyed this read through so far. This is the first book. It's not quite perfect that I thought it was gonna be, but yeah, it's somewhere. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed. If you want another episode of this or another read through, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe down below, and I will see you guys later. Maximus out.